Wednesday evening. September has just about run away with us, and here we are this evening for which will be the penultimate program for September. Christmas is coming, the geese is getting fat. And Jerry George, this is Mecca Chat. And the usual suspects are here. George Grant at Honcho's, Catherine over there in London, Margaret in New York, in St. George's. Yours truly here in Kingston, St. Vincent. Folks, as usual, to tell us what's on the agenda for tonight is none other than Beverly Sinclair. Take it away, producer.
Good evening, listeners everywhere, and my wonderful suspects. I have missed you so much. It has been a few weeks.
I know. The suspects were on the lam.
Yeah, I tell you, everybody tried to get out of jail free card and gone.
Run, man, run.
They absconded for a few weeks, but folks, we round them up and we brought them back, and here they are. So it's good to be back. It's really good to be back. I have missed this group. I have missed this show. I know suspect in charge, George Grant, has kept things going over the past few weeks, and we have to express our thanks and appreciation to George for keeping the fire burning over these few weeks when we were not live.
Here.
He's thinking about.
Yes, but this evening we're live. And as usual, we are going to talk things here that are not necessarily the views of GrenadaBroadcast. They are our views. And look at that. I have rain trying to wash me away here. I better close this window.
What?
But I will keep talking while I close the window. But I will also close my video.
No Sahara dust over Grenada?
No Sahara dust. What we're having is some tremendously wet weather.
No, it's not wet weather, wet rain.
Yes, tremendously wet rain. So, since I don't want my space here to be tremendous, I will close my window. And so I have.
Oh, well, you're really foolish that you said that. Oh, see that Argentina pretending.
Here.
Tremendously wet.
That's what we do on Mecca Chat. We like to laugh. We love to laugh. This is the program where we laugh about very serious matters. Not that we're taking things for joke, but we just want to keep the mood light.
And Beverly,
if you don't do that, you certainly will go the other direction.
Oh, right about that one.
We do not want 2 weeks in the hospital, and we certainly do not want any other kind of ailment to befall us.
Beverly.
Right. Hi, George.
I just wanted to let you know that somebody out there in Switzerland is really appreciating your laugh. Chester says, Beverly, Beverly, I love that laugh.
All right.
Thank you.
Would you like to go to Switzerland?
Of course I would.
It took too long to answer. Chance pass.
I most certainly would. I love to see world, other parts of the world, see what they look like.
Chocolate and cheese and,
Exactly, see what the weather is like there.
But let me tell you something. That's the right place of the kind of bank accounts that the others run from. They don't go there. The Swiss account is better than the other ones.
It's better than the Greece.
I'm telling you, go for a Swiss account.
I'll take a Swiss account. And I don't want it to look like my Grenada account.
You mean zeros? do like
I know, right?
Do like Maduro, just lop off the zeros.
Oh, geez, I tell you. But the funny thing is, there are no numbers in front of the zeros. It's just zero straight.
Fool them.
Oh Lord, I tell you. Well, on the menu this evening, we have 3 major items. and we will see what else gets in the way after these three items, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are going to look at the CCJ political campaign.
You what?
The CCJ political campaign.
There's oxymoron or something in this?
Listen, anywhere I see politician, I call it political. And I see plenty politician in the CCJ campaign. So that is my name for it. The CCJ political campaign. Right? So
So you mean there's no separation of power? There's something fundamentally wrong here.
we're going to talk about that later, man. Don't hurry.
Well, I
Take
don't
your
know.
time. Right? We have crime in the region. We have learned through one of our illustrious prime ministers, that the wrongdoers wake up in the morning thinking of causing harm to Ralph. Yeah.
Yep.
So
That's what he said.
yeah, so we want to look at whether or not everyone who has been harmed in the region has the name Ralph.
Could I put up a disclaimer?
And we also want to look at the Silk Road, or Chinese colonization, or the death trap, or death swap, or whatever you want to call it. The common denominator in all of this is the Chinese debt. So these are the three big ticket items we have for our grand return. As usual, we invite everyone to chime in. George will be able, I know that George has been having some challenges there, right, George? It's not a secret, you tell everybody, right? Right. So I just checking in with George if we'll be able to, share comments from Facebook and the chat Rumble online and all the other ways that people usually chime in. We able to do that still?
Absolutely.
Yep.
You will be able
Yep.
to. You will be able to.
Great.
OP has started to bung away already this evening on
That OP has no behavior.
Get a Life. OP.
What OP is saying?
Well, he's posted a number of things here. Just let me start. First of all, he says, "Good hearing AB on your program, George. This gentleman has a wealth of knowledge that we should make every effort to listen to every time he makes himself available." I think he's talking about the program we did this morning with Alan. Good day, Grenada.
Mm-hmm.
Then he goes on to say, "Good to have Mekwi Chat back. And welcome back, Beverly and all. I hope all had a good rest and are all ready." Huh?
Only one person had rest in this.
And
Who you?
Rest
Who
and
you?
excitement. Listen.
And are ready to tackle prevailing events like high roadside walls and beachside encroaching walls of Silver Sands. We must be mindful that a Jericho-type wall is not being erected. How about the hurried attempt to make the CCJ our appellate court while our lower courts are failing us miserably? And then he catches his breath and he says, "The volume very low, George. Good night, suspect." Oh, OP. I think OP is in England right now. He's sometimes here, but I think he's in England right now. So.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, we welcome those comments. And Chief Suspect, where do you want to start? You want to start with the victims called Ralph? You want to start with Silk Road? You want to start with the political campaign?
Let's start with the Silk Road.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Because there is, in fact, there's a growing concern by lots of nations that borrowed ostensibly that's what they thought, borrowed lots of money from China. And several of those nations, Zambia, most of them being African nations, are finding themselves that they cannot repay these loans. In fact, in the very first place, the size of the loans was bigger than almost approach the country's GDP. But they had them, and now they can't pay. China has skillfully offered loans in the area of infrastructure, areas such as energy, things such as ports, facilities, roads. In fact, there's one country a road has been shut down by the Chinese. Yeah, I use the road, Jamaica. Highway 2000. All right. But seriously, I mean, go ahead.
Expensive toll road.
Exactly. I better pity people them. Anyway, this is serious though, because I mean, it is clearly a well calculated and strategized plot by the Chinese. And that brings me to mind when a couple months ago we spoke to a similar offer to Grenada. It involved building of a railroad around Grenada, building massive ports and things of that nature. We never quite knew what happened. This was reported in the China, which one? One of the Chinese newspapers. But we never had a local confirmation as to whether this plan was actually proposed or not. But it is the magnitude of the kind of debt that is being offered, even in that Grenada one. Because what it does say is that people are being offered projects. In some cases, that make no sense. Why would Grenada need a railroad around the island?
Maybe we need to put all the minibuses. Maybe we need to put all the minibuses out of business.
Well, something.
Well, that's for true.
Right? And then you're going to have these massive ports that are going to take in these ships. And at the same time, there was a similar offer made to Trinidad recently, where Trinidad is going to put this port again, another massive port for repairing ships. And I don't know if our leaders really, quite frankly, how much of this are they really aware of? In fact, about 3 weeks ago on my Business Advantage program, I was looking at the question of even private investors coming into our country and asking ourselves a question. We discussed it. How big should a loan, how big a loan should the government take from an investor that doesn't jeopardize to some degree our sovereignty? And people could say what they like, but if you go and go through today's world in terms of how you take loans and stuff, an investor might turn around. It might not be China. A private investor might turn around. You don't know what they're going to demand. And the question is, are our leaders and our current crop really, do they have the skill set to be able to negotiate these things? Because that is what Africa is finding out. Right? That when they said yes, they didn't know what they were saying yes to.
Yes. I will add that the negotiations are not done along business lines. They are done along political lines. Once upon a time, it was for the Kodak moment, now it's for the selfie moment. Or politicians want something to stand behind and cut ribbon and make speech and beat their chest and behave as if they're doing something wonderful for the country. And because we are a group of people who like highway shine, we love the noise and we love the bling, we do not take time to look at the implications of these things. You know, it's like Margaret and Catherine can relate to this. You know, you see a pair of shoes and it looks good and you want it, and you don't bother to think whether you can walk in it or but the shoe look good and you want it and you're gonna buy it.
So you're saying that's a woman thing?
And when you go home, I'm drawing an example that
you three could relate to.
You know?
Okay, fine.
Yeah, right. As if
when you go home with the shoe, exactly. When you go home,
we do not have buyer's remorse.
Look,
caveat emptor. We pay attention to that.
Oh, please. don't bother let us start talking about some things we see men on the streets, you know.
Yeah, you know.
Because there should be a law against men shopping in some instances.
You mean those who don't buy a full pants, a full pair of trousers?
But it's something along this line. You go out and you buy something because it looks good, and when you go home with it, you realize that what it was intended to do, it can't do it. Or you go out and you see a lovely sofa set or a lovely something and you love it, buy it and take it home. It can't fit in the space you have at home. And this, in large part, seems to be how we sign on to these massive projects.
Listen to me.
Bling.
Hold on, before you go there, there's a lady who did a commentary yesterday, and I share it after I have to look for it, 20-minute case, on this situation in Zambia. She says, listen, forget that. She says, what is happening is that a lot of these deals are made at dinner tables. The Chinese come, they invite the leaders out to dinner. By the time they get to the actual deals, and they probably offer them whatever, the deal is done. We're sold. And I'm afraid that we are actually walking with our hands stretched out back into slavery.
Oh, back colonization again. Again. And this time, nobody coming to Africa to negotiate no sale from the motherland. They're buying us right here.
But some of the same people, right, who complained a generation ago about how Africa Europe underdeveloped Africa. Some of these same people who went to the same universities and who made and chanted those things are involved with what is happening in China now.
Of course.
They are part of doing the very same thing they made a whole bunch of noise about. So I want to know who they blame, who the next generation is going to blame.
And that is why I say when people don't know their history and don't know where they're coming from, they don't know where they're going, and they are bound to make mistakes of the past.
Exactly.
When you watch the Chinese are methodical in what they do, you know.
Oh, they know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, and the whole thing with this is part of a greater strategic plan. And the problem is that we never have a plan.
Exactly.
The problem is, and China comes in and offer all these fabulous projects and say, okay, I will do this and I will do that, without us really stopping to think of what the consequences of those things are. And in many cases, the devil is in the details. Too often, a lot of times we send people off on negotiations and stuff. They don't even know what they're negotiating. They can't read a contract. They don't know how to do all of these things. And all these little clauses and things are slipped in there. And before you know it, your neck is in a noose that you cannot get it out of.
And our Prime Minister here in Grenada stood up in the Parliament and talked about how our friends from China, giving us $66 million. We're getting a $66 million loan to upgrade the airport.
Yeah, and even as Bev is talking about that, there was some agreement. I saw some story in passing that they had signed some agreement with China under the same Silk Road thing again.
Yesterday or day before yesterday.
Right. And in listening to the Chinese representative, he was saying he named some of the countries in the Caribbean that had signed onto that agreement as well. And among the countries were Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Suriname, and Dominica. And now you have Grenada.
Yes. So let us backtrack a little bit, Jerry and Margaret and Catherine and George. And for the sake of our listeners, we like to ensure that listeners know what we're talking about, to highlight what is this Silk Road. I'm going to be just doing some excerpts from a document here, which is published online by the Parliament of Australia. And it outlines what the China Silk Road, which is also called the One Belt, One Road Initiative. It outlines a little what it is. And this is an initiative by China to connect maritime, by water, and by road certain key strategic areas right around the world, from the continent of Asia, where China is, right across the Pacific Ocean, the Indian Ocean, and connect this side of the world back to that side of the world through an economic and a trade route. That is what China is doing. So China has sat down and strategically mapped out which ports it needs to control and where it needs to put down its footprint so that it can establish what we call the Silk Road. So it's an economic and a strategic agenda by China, where the two ends of Eurasia, as well as Africa and Oceania, and these regions of the world, are being more closely tied together along two routes, one over land and one by water.
And I think you also need to add to that in some of these ports that they have taken over, because they've also converted them into or used them for military purposes as well. So it's not simply just taking over a port for trade.
Right.
So in places like Djibouti, for example, and Sri Lanka, where they have taken over ports, they have literally put. And I mean, you understand. I'm not naive to sit and think that other superpowers don't have the same strategic objectives as well. But the question I always say, is which devil I want to dance with.
Well, having said that, the others will not take the same route that they take. You have to remember something about the Chinese thinking. China is a market-run economy, but a communist country. Okay? And so when China goes out and does things, that's the mindset is what's driving them. That's different. Some of the other countries that could do the same thing in the region might be a little bit because they pay more attention to what UN might say or what human rights might say and stuff like that. China is not bound by those things.
and something which is extremely important, China plans long term. China don't worry about what is happening today. They are looking 50 years down the road to see where they want to have China positioned, and they put things in place now for that to happen. I'll never forget this discussion in the Chinese realm when they talk about the social revolution of 250 years ago. 250 years ago. And the Chinese were asked, so do you think the social revolution 250 years ago was successful? And the response was, it's too early to tell.
And we have 5-year cycles, right?
Oh, yes. And every 5 years we want to see results and we want to see change and we want to see things different. 250 years, it's too early to tell. So
But the other thing that China has targeted, so China has targeted, for example, minerals. That's what the interest in Africa is. So,
and Venezuela.
Right. Well, two different sets of minerals. In what do they call these things again? Something earth.
Something what?
Earth. It's just anyway. Your cell phone, for example.
Yeah, they have the rare earth or something like that.
Rare earth. Yeah. That's what it's called. Your cell phone cannot be made without that stuff, right? And some of the only places in the world that has it is Africa. And what China has done, she has angled herself into a position to owning practically all of the Earth's rare earth, which is serious because a lot of the modern technology is based on this rare earth. In fact, out in the Pacific, where they have this confusion between China and who else? China, if not Korea, and whatever.
In the South China Sea?
In the South China Sea, right? With the islands, they just found some of that same rare earth there. All right? So China has skillfully, before the world even understood about the earth thing, China had seen it. And so she had already positioned herself. The other thing that China has positioned herself to control is gold. So, for example, China has just offered another $5 billion to Venezuela. Venezuela owes China $70 billion already, and her goal. So the gold deposits that Venezuela had is now in the hands of the Chinese. And there's another country where they have taken over the gold mining. So they're interested in places like Suriname and Guyana. Don't let nobody fool you. They have this well figured out.
And to think that China is not a country that has natural deposits of oil and gas.
Nope. But they own the world. They own the biggest deposit in the world now.
But
so the question is, we in these small islands, are we paying attention? Are we at risk? Whether it's to them or, as I say, sometimes I see our smaller islands more at risk to private investors who come in and lavish a lot of money. And they can cramp us in the same way. They can put us in a monkey pants in almost the same way. Although we might claim sovereignty. Go ahead,
No, I was just going to remind everyone that when the Chinese came and built those gazebos up in Granite Town, and the Minister of Tourism said, we have to know who feed us, leave the people alone.
Yes, of course.
And she was right.
Yes.
The
Chinese well know that they own the place, so they're going and put their stamp on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Calm and cool as that.
Because it wasn't about the same time when this project came out that nobody spoke about, that was found in the China Sun newspaper. The same one I spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
It was around the same time.
Yeah, and she said, what all you fussing about? You have to know who feed you. And who feed you is going to colonize you.
Oh, boy.
No, who feed you is going to do whatever they want.
Well, that's why they're going to colonize you. Because when they come here, and all of us have to stop speaking English and go learn to speak Chinese.
Mandarin.
We'll find out. Mandarin. Right? We'll find out.
George, that has taught George. George just loves the idea of learning Mandarin.
Yeah. I remember the minister, she endorsed that. She said, teach my children Chinese. Come on, man. What's you talking about? Shut up. I'm not apologizing. Teach my children Chinese, eat Chinese food, do Chinese everything. Oh, and she was really, really up there. And you shut up and you remember who feeding you all. It's the Chinese that feeding you all. And so, wow. Oh boy. Exactly. What are we eating? What are we living on? What are we living on? What's our diet? Our diet is changed and we don't even know it. We don't even know it. And this is so since that time I know, well, we're going to be colonized. Chinese colonization is right there. Before we know it, we are being sold.
Yeah,
you're already sold anyway. So
I mean, I don't want us to take the position. I think that one should mingle with everybody. You know, I'm not saying that, but at the same time, to use, you know, the proverbial example is that one should always be careful of Greeks bearing gifts.
Exactly.
You know, you need to take everything with a pinch of salt and realize that there's no such thing as a free lunch.
Nope.
So when you begin to accept these gifts, you need to ask yourself, what am I giving up? And how much am I willing to give up in order to get this? And is it worth it? You know, those are the questions that you have to ask.
And as I said, this woman who did the commentary was making the point that many times it's at the dinner table after these things. Yes, long before.
Of course, and it's done by stealth. You see, very secretive. When we don't anything, when we are asleep and they're up there, it's in the dinner table. That is when it happens. Next day we don't know anything.
And I think the other thing that sort of
with our leaders, you know, that's what they're talking
about. Yes, definitely, yeah.
And I think too, the other thing that bothers me about this is that we live in an age where there's a certain malaise and everything else that seem to hang over people. And you know, in another time, another era, people would be up and be questioning these things and saying no, they're not taking it. Today there's a certain amount of passivity that has entered the population that makes these things even more concerning, you know.
And that is why, for example, we have leaders who go off and make decisions on behalf of the nation. Do not even come back and report to the nation. I'm not even talking about, say, taking a loan like that. Does not even come back to the nation and say to the nation what they have done.
But Jerry, Grenada signed on to this Silk Road initiative yesterday or the day before yesterday.
Well, there
Did
you
anybody know? Did anybody know that we're going to sign this thing?
That's what I'm saying.
People
That's
in
my
general know what this thing means, what's contained in it. You know what you're giving up when you sign on to this thing. What is the benefit for Grenada in this? None.
What they mostly have to see is what these people see as the what must I call it? The stumbling blocks along the way that you could stumble on and give them what they want. Because they know they don't do these things. They know how you're going to trip up.
And that's exactly the point that some people have made, is that in many cases these countries don't know the fine points that are written into these agreements. And so by the time they wake up and smell the coffee, the die is already cast.
I have a friend who
the guillotine is on the way down.
Yes, let's take our first break. And when we come back, Jerry, you hold that point, and when you come back, we continue with this discussion, because this is really scary stuff, you know.
Scary stuff.
Very, very scary stuff.
So, babe, Alberto and Beryl come and gone, right? So that means we still have Chris, Debbie, Florence, Michael, Patty, Sarah.
From the looks of it, Tony and Valerie might be coming as well. So we need to pick up some extra hurricane supplies.
You don't know how many hurricanes will be coming this season, so you need to be prepared. At Hubbard's Hardware and Building Supply departments and the Food Fair supermarkets, everything from canned foods, flashlights and batteries, to plywood, tarpaulin, lanterns, roof repair kits, water tanks, etc. are available. For over 90 years, we've helped you prepare for and recover from storms. Hubbard's is an integral part of your hurricane preparedness plan. Get discounts when using credit and debit cards.
Easy living should be convenient. With Grenneck, it is. Dial 237 for any Grenneck department, or for customer service, streetlight outages, or if it's unsafe to trim a tree near a power line. For streetlights and service issues, please note the pole number. From just about anywhere, you can also check your bill balance and other account information. Just keep your Grenneck access number handy. Dial 237 for Grenneck. It's that easy. Grenneck, energizing our Grenadas.
Came so close to you guys, have no idea how close that came.
Grenada Market has now introduced the prime products to online shoppers in the UK via amazon.co.uk. Zeverpick, Nutmeg, Wabande and Mobiback are now available, with more products being added gradually. These products are shipped across the UK and Europe free of charge for Amazon Prime members and backed by Amazon's reputable customer service. Avoid international shipping. Buy in your local area. Amazon.com in the USA, Amazon.ca in Canada, and Amazon.co.uk in UK and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
That is known as the Chinese debt trap and countries that have been caught. So first of all, let's talk about debt trap economics. What is a debt trap? A situation in which a debt is difficult or impossible to repay because high interest payments prevent the repayment of the principal. So you roll over the debt and you try to make it up, and eventually you realize that you can't pay. Yes, and this is what has happened to several countries in Pakistan, Zambia in Africa, Sri Lanka, Zambia,
Maldives.
Mm-hmm. So this is clearly a very, very thought out strategy by the Chinese to offer lots of money to countries who can't. Now, I was making the point, I have a friend who is an engineer in Trinidad. And one of the things I was told is that anytime they get a contract, they have to spend, listen, we spend more time going through the contract because there are always little traps in there. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know, they actually have specialized people to deal with that. They say the Chinese contracts are not like a contract from the European Union. Mm-hmm. They always have some little...
Oh, yeah.
What must they call them?
Trap
door in it that you could drop through. Mm-hmm. They say we spend more time making sure that every single word and line before you sign up. Mm-hmm. They say they are very clever at tying you. And that's, I don't think that we even get close to having that kind of expertise to be able to undertake a negotiation of that.
Negotiation. Every time Margaret using this word, you using this word. We don't negotiate. We drink rum. When we feel nice, we sign. We're talking about negotiate.
So what rum are they drinking again?
Listen, negotiation is when you bring something to the table.
To the table. That is also true. That's also true.
But you have to make it look like a negotiation.
When you go with your hungry belly, go sit down on the people table and all you're waiting on is the food. What kind of negotiation?
I have a hungry belly.
Drink rum and sign.
I have a hungry belly. That's what I bring to the
table. That is what you bring. Well, we're going to fill it up for you and give you the documents to sign. Yes. Negotiate.
No, we're making this thing light. But when this thing hit me for the first time, I was so stunned. Because as I say, here you have a country. Yes. Oh, the other thing that China is set out to do, right? China says they're going to have 450 million, 450 million, I mean, make sure it's right. Yes, millionaires in the next 10 years, I think it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a Chinese objective.
And this is what people don't understand. China, although a communist country, is making its people richer, while we are making our people poorer.
Yeah.
And I've said it here on McWichat so many times before, you cannot have a wealthy nation with poor people. So all of these politicians who jumping up talking about they love poor people, and all of these poor people who love to be poor and love to remain poor, but yet still you expect the nation you live in to be prosperous, it's not going to happen.
But that kind of strategy is exactly why China can come in and exploit it, because you love poor people and you keep them poor. So when you get a little offer of some money, it's easy to say
And that little offer is making millionaires in China who will in turn come and colonize you. All your poor people.
450 million millionaires in the next, I'm sure it's decade.
Look here. Look from this. All of we Grenadians have to go up in Grenada and go fight with them monkey for space to live, you know.
You sure about that?
You better grab your gazebo now.
I know he was planning to develop Grenada.
Because when colonization take us, all of us have to run go find place to live.
Oh dear.
When we have to move out, when all the land is sold out, or we owe China and we can't pay, and China come and say, okay, we want Grenans. All of you people who live in Grenans, all of you in your fancy house in Philippines, scramble.
No, people might think we're making light of this, but this is serious business because it is
It's
actually
serious
happening
thing.
this week.
Of course.
This week is Sri Lanka or which one? China moved in and took over the port.
Of course.
There's
Zambia.
a road, Zambia. There's a road in one of those other countries that China built, and China just put a block on the road.
Yes.
They just blocked the road.
Right now, look at Jamaica. China own all the roads in Jamaica. And this and this hub, this port hub that was being put in Jamaica, who was putting it here? And when you read this Silk Road Initiative, it tells you exactly what's happening here. They're going for the seaports, they're going for the airports. That's what they want.
All the strategic infrastructure.
All
Because
the strategic
they own,
infrastructure.
once they own that, they own the world.
Yes. I mean, when China...
When Venezuela had to give up her gold, that blew me away. Because basically what a country keeps at the end of the day is its gold. Because if push really came to shove, that's what you have.
That always has value on the world market.
Exactly.
Always. And only because nobody doing business with Venezuela right now. Venezuela has resources. If Venezuela would sort out its problems, it would not be in the position it's in. But we all know that's a different discussion, you know?
Different discussion,
indeed. You have some of the progressives who will tell you about how the imperialism and the fight against Venezuela. Venezuela fighting against itself.
I don't understand that. I just don't. That one don't get me.
Yeah. These are people who don't want to take responsibility for their own actions, you see? But that's a different story. Our clear and present danger is colonization by China. And our leaders are just handing over our countries without a thought, without any care. People are not informed. Now, when you talk about these things, people don't even want to listen because they feel nice. Drink rum and feel nice. People feel nice. They don't want to hear nothing about reality. More rum and soca. And we're good to go.
Listen, I remember a couple of years ago, we had a particular minister of tourism. What was he ex? I can't remember. And when I asked him about whether or not we're going to be in the Caribbean receiving significant tourists from China, he poo-pooed the thought. I remember sitting there thinking, where's this man? Because I had recognized by that time. And anybody who does know recognizes the fact that China is going to be.
But remember when we put that same question to Noel on Time to Face the Fact?
But you see, I'm not talking about, I just been calling him.
Well, calling him.
As I say, he poo-pooed the thought.
It's in the public domain. It was a broadcast on regional TV. Yeah.
He poo-pooed the thought.
And 3 years later.
Where are we?
Where are we?
Not just waiting to see tourists come, but owners.
Not just tourists, owners.
Owners.
There may have been a reason. There may have been a reason why he poo-pooed the tourist ideas, because he knew the owners were coming.
You mean he was ahead of us?
Yeah.
They come with the repossession documents.
Yeah, he was probably one of them at the dinner table.
Yeah, no.
But people, there is always something that can be done. I don't believe in this thing where you say, oh, we have no alternative. I never believe in that. Because when you put yourself in that kind of desperate situation, then you just accept anything that comes because you feel like you have no alternative. We do have alternatives. And one of the first things we need to do is get up off our lazy rumps and go to work. That's the first thing we need to do.
I think the first thing we need to do also is to demand that our leaders let us know what they're doing.
I would put that second.
Why?
When
you might get one go walking and realize that we're working for yourself.
When you claim your country, but when you are interested enough to get up and go to work, you will be interested enough to know what your tax dollars are doing. But when you sit down and wait on somebody else's tax dollars to feed you and pay for your education that you're doing nothing with, but things must always be flowing to you. You do not consider self-reliance. And these people talking about independence, we go in there when we come to the CCJ. One of the first things we need to do is get up, Jerry, and go to work. When people have a mind to work, everything else will matter. But if they're not working, they're not producing, they're not planning for the future, they don't care what the leaders are doing with the country. And
and that is something that bothers me, because I see a couple of situations in a couple of our countries brewing where leaders went off and made determinations for the country, and the countries have not understood the implication of those things. But one day it will come home to roost, and people are going to say, but we didn't know this happened.
They didn't want to know.
No, I'm serious. I wouldn't even say what's on the map, because I just figure leave that. But there are some implications that are going to come home. Leaders go off, make decisions about, or even make associations. They don't come and tell us. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but they should come and tell us. They should tell us.
Yeah.
They should tell us before they go what they're going to do.
Precisely.
That is my concern. You know, we've been in discussions with these people. These are what the discussions show, and we think we should sign and get some feedback from the people. But again, they'll tell you, once you vote, you give them a mandate.
That's what they tell us.
They go and do whatever they want.
Definitely.
So they would have voted 5-10 years ago. They have the mandate. But things have changed in the world in terms strategically and otherwise. But it suits them because they have some personal agenda, and they put the country in it. And the country wakes up 5 years later, 3 years later, and says, wait, but we didn't know this.
And they say, oh, we have a mandate, you know. We were given a mandate, and we're carrying it out. Because we know the decisions they make are not always the best decisions for the country. We know that.
But they don't think so, though.
No.
Another thing, I think the powers that be, they don't appreciate inquiring minds. They don't appreciate people, asking questions. Because look at what the people got when they mentioned the what they call it, gobbers in Johnnytown. Look the response from that person, person in authority. Look what you get from these people when you're asking questions. And he said, why is this there? He said, shut up. You just give us an explanation. He said, shut up. He said, oh, well, the Chinese brought the place, they their own. But say that, you can give an explanation. But you said, shut up. Remember who's feeding you. This is not what you asked. You just ask, why is that there? Why is not something that represent Grenada? This represent China. This represent, we're just asking a question. And that's what we get. So people are afraid of, people are not really encouraged to inquire anything, to find out anything. That's people remain quiet. I think that's one of the reasons. They cut you down. These people there. It's just you cut,
and people feel embarrassed when you talk to them that way, so they don't want to talk.
Definitely.
But that's not a reason to be embarrassed. That's a reason to push
Margaret,
back.
I agree.
You've got to shut up, Margaret. Margaret, when people are
I'm not shutting up. Don't
put you down.
there. That's when I push, because you see, a fresh mouth like mine would have said to her, speak for herself. If her mouth is on the ground, mine is not. My grandmother was famous for saying to us, when you hear you took any nonsense or you went in anything, she would say, what happened to you? Your mouth on the ground? That everything passed and you had to pick it up?
No, Margaret, I agree with you that people should not be embarrassed, but they are. If you are among people and you just see the way they react, if someone should shout at them, or if someone should try to make something that they said sound stupid, so-called stupid, or anything like that, people, they get so embarrassed, they just want to wither up and dry up. They shouldn't. But it's a life lesson that people need to learn. That, look, man, your opinion is as good as anybody else's. Don't let anybody make you feel like what you say and what you contribute is worthless.
Absolutely.
And the leaders do that. It's like they're doing, as we flip over to the CCJ thing, It's like they're doing with the CCJ political campaign, which they're running. We see the prime ministers across the region jumping up with the judges, which I find most distasteful and most disgusting. But they're jumping up with the judges and all over the place telling people to vote for the CCJ. And when you ask certain questions, they want to behave like you have no sense. Why are you asking that? You know? And try to put people down and tell you, just vote for it because we say so. And anything you're saying which is not in agreement with what we say is stupid. So just forget it. And that's the kind of attitude, and I have listened to several of these forums. Although unfortunately, I have not been able to be in any so far. But I follow them online. I listen to them. I listen to the questions. I listen to the responses. And last night in Antigua, one young lady, I was so proud of her presentation. She said, you know what is happening? We're not listening to each other. People are putting forward issues and speaking to those on the head table. She said, you're not listening to the issues. We're telling you what our experiences are and how we feel about the court and why we are not convinced that we should support the court. And you are telling us that we don't have any right to feel that way.
Exactly. Because they have already put everything in place.
Exactly so. We bulletproof the court. So why are you standing outside of the bulletproof court and telling us that you don't feel safe? You're outside, you know, you're not in the protected bulletproof environment, you're outside. But you're telling us that we shouldn't stand up out there and feel like we're not safe because we bulletproof the place already. They're not listening.
No, my own experience here when they had this session here, and you asked, because I distinctly remember, I've been following things for so long. Prime Minister Gonzalez making the point that the magistracy is one of the areas that leaves the court open in people's mind. The majority of people have contact with the court at magistracy level. But the governments choose who the magistrates are. They pay them. All right. And I remember asking when they had this session here, they said to me, oh, you having problem with that because you're still under the Privy Council. That's what I was told. Go to Barbados. What's the difference in Barbados?
It hasn't changed. It hasn't changed in Dominica. In Dominica recently, the lawyers had a protest, which they say was not a protest. You know, because of the situation with the legal system in Dominica. And who is Dominica's final court?
Exactly.
CCJ.
Right.
But not only that, the Barbados judiciary is in such a mess. In fact, I listened to the Attorney General 2 days ago explain how bad it really is. It takes a case at least 10 years to get to hearing.
To get to hearing.
So that's absolutely
to get to hearing.
Yes.
And you know,
you heard me.
Yeah. And I would, in all fairness, the only person that I heard make any attempt to address those fears, and everybody that has been trying to sell CCJ, was Mia.
Because she realized it's just crazy. But that is criminal cases, you know.
Yes,
civil
she
cases
was the only person in
we passed those
all
steps.
the presentations I have heard up and down the Caribbean, because I listened to St. Vincent the same night that she was in Grenada. I listened to you guys in St. Vincent. I mean, the people that came here as well when they were in New York and stuff. None of them addressed people's concerns and people who were speaking from their experiences about having cases in court and not getting a hearing. And Mia was the only person in her address who specifically said, yes, we know we have problems. These are problems.
Serious
and
problems.
These are the problems. And this is something that these people seem not to be grasping at all. You know, so.
But Margaret, when I pointed out Barbados in my address, they shouted me down and said I was wrong. But I knew I was right.
Right.
Because we've had 2 lawyers come on to Time to Face the Facts and who made the point of how difficult it is. Because what they're saying is that, especially in the case of criminal lawyers, most lawyers are not going towards criminal law.
Right.
It doesn't have the money. right? So it just makes it worse. But they say if you think it's bad in the criminal section, go to the civil and you'll realize people have died. People, one generation died, the next generation died. Nobody's touched the cases yet.
I mean,
but
that's absolutely crazy.
But we mouth that justice denied is just how thing go again?
Delayed is justice
denied. But here you have a situation that is exactly like that under the CCJ. But the night they were saying to me, "Oh, you have problems with your magistracy because you're still under the Privy Council." And it's that kind of thinking that annoys me because it's like I don't have a brain.
But I mean, I'm not a legal person, and I will need somebody to explain that to me. Because if I'm under the magistracy, if I'm under the Privy Council, how does the problems with the magistracy in my local environment, how does it affect that? Because as far as my understanding of the court is, that the Privy Council is an appellate court.
Yes. Correct.
So how does what happens at the magistracy level on the local front affect the Privy Council or vice versa? How does the Privy Council affect that? I mean, I'm not a legal scholar, but to me it makes absolutely no sense.
No, it doesn't.
But that's why I counted with the Barbados situation. Another thing that night I was wrong. They say, "Oh, well, you see, you're all paying for the court already and you're not using it." And I said, but that can't be so because we have signed on to the original jurisdiction of the court, which means we're in the court.
Using it.
When I walked down
and that's another point that I was making, is something that they have not explained. I don't think a lot of people understand that they are already part of the court.
Exactly.
And yes, they are already paying for the court. The issue is whether or not this should also become your final court of appeal. That is what they're not making clear to people.
They're not making that distinction. And when I said that the night,
in fact,
when I walked on from the microphone, the guy who is the chairman of the finance committee, whatever the fund, right? He was in the room. He called me and said, "Jerry, you're absolutely correct." I said, "But I know I was correct because how else? If you signed on to the original jurisdiction, that is why the judges and all of them are there. So they must be paying something." But that's one night they tried to do all kinds of things to make it look like it wasn't the situation.
The funny thing is, I was talking to a friend of mine and she said she heard one person who was telling the court saying that the court, Caribbean people court. But here, in the same vein that he said that, he went on to say because they're taking a loan from or something like that. So her question to them was, who will be paying for the loan? I mean, even if the governments have to contribute money to the court, fine. Where does government get its money from?
Thank you very much.
So how could you, in all honesty, look at people and say to them that, "Oh, you people wouldn't have to pay for the court"? Really?
Listen, for people listening to us here, $100 million was put forward. Each country, based on its economy, had a certain contribution level that they had to make. That whole thing has been repaid by all of the countries, the $100 million. The $100 million has been invested, and it's based on money from the investment that the court is, the lawyers and the judges and so on paid, and the whole operation of the court is paid. But who paid the money back? Every single taxpayer.
Of course.
Taxpaying country.
I mean, yes, the principle is great. They borrow the money, they invested, blah, blah, blah. That's all well and good. Unless they're going to tell me that they're going to use the proceeds from the investment to repay the loan, that's the only way you can say that Caribbean people will not have to pay for it. But if sorry to sound so negative, which I hate to do. Honestly, I honestly hate to do that. But I'm just going on past performances. My thing is, who's going to be investing this money? What's your experience? And all those kind of questions. How do I know you won't be coming back to me for money down the road because you've
apparently
blown all of that stuff?
No. Apparently, from some of the reports, I think they're online, they seem to have done very good in terms of their investment.
Oh, good. So then use some of that to repay the loan and free the rest of us.
Halt. I think we need to put something on the table here. The Caribbean Court of Justice does not still have $100 million.
It has more than that.
No, it has 85 million left.
Oh, there you go.
And Prime Minister Motley has said that at some point we're going to have to top it up. We, meaning the taxpayers across the region, because these governments gonna have to take some money out of the coffers to top it up.
Well, I would have thought that, Margaret, the question you asked about who is investing and how is investing, because with that kind of money, I would think that the investment must also have taken care of keeping a certain level, but clearly not.
Right. So I'm very, very surprised to hear that it had gone below the 100 million, because I believe the affairs of the court money would have been kept there as a base.
Does it seed capital?
Exactly. And then it would continue to generate enough money based on skillful investment and money management to manage the affairs of the court. But if that is not happening, we're looking at another liat.
Now you see, it goes back to my point.
No, and Margaret, I honestly, until Beverly said that, I had heard, well, they made it always sound that was a matter that was foregone conclusion, that was it. But you see, let me speak to that issue, because it is the same problem, as you quite rightly said, about, not just about liat, but about our NIS and things of that nature. We continue to look for investments in a region where the economies are bad. No, I'm saying if you have $100 million, US dollars, that is it, there on the markets, on the stock markets, because there's such good investments out there.
Well, I don't know where the CCJ money is invested. I really don't know. I've never looked. I've never checked. I have no clue where it's invested. That they didn't put any in Click or Bico. I would hope that none of it is invested in any of these government bonds that are floating all over the place. None of the investments are frivolous, and that the people on the management committee for the fund, who, as far as I know, they are not financial experts, but I do hope that they get some expert financial advice on how to manage the money, because we as a region do not have a good track record in managing money. We don't.
And I go back to tell you, especially things like that. Our NISs are in trouble because on the one hand, government take out the money to do their own thing. The other investments get 3 to 5%. 3 to 5% cannot keep an investment of that nature going, where you have more and more people coming on to, George, we have a call? Yeah, more and more people coming on to the pay. We need some serious investments out there that takes us to 10 and 12%. And it's not going to happen from any businesses in the Caribbean. Have you ever listened to the stock exchanges in the Caribbean? The same stocks every day. They move by penny.
And listen, don't just say the same stocks. It's probably less than 10 stocks that are trading over and over every day.
Every day. Don't laugh, it's the truth.
It is the truth.
So when you take your money and say you're only going to invest in Caribbean investment, the Caribbean is not doing well. For us to do that, we need to take our money and put them in fund managers who have the skill to manage them outside of the region.
And part of the demise, returns.
Exactly, and part of the growing demise of our NIS is based exactly on that. Based exactly on that. The NIS thought when Click on stuff, instead they put $60 million in it. That's $60 million that just gone.
Just disappear. And that is Vincent. The NIS in Grenada put quite a few million. I don't even recall how many millions that is, but it's in double figures as well. Many millions. And I am sure it's across the region. All of that money, all of that is live cash, taxpayers' money, which was taken out of your salaries. Because your NIS is taken off the top. This is not discretionary payment.
Nope.
And all of that money is just gone.
Our people have not grasped that NIS is their money, and that's the part that bothers me.
I don't get it. I don't get it at all.
People treat NIS as if government money, and so government have a right to do what they want.
No, people treat what they call government money as if government have somewhere getting money from.
Other than them, eh?
Every time you say government money, you need to substitute government for taxpayers.
That's why I like American reporting for that. They always say the American taxpayer.
Yeah.
But it is the American taxpayer.
But the Caribbean taxpayer
is the
too.
Caribbean taxpayers.
Oh no, I'm not disputing that.
No,
I'm not disputing that.
I know.
But
But what we're saying is the language keeps it in people's mind that when you see the Grenadian taxpayer, the Vincentian taxpayer, I think it will keep it to the front of people's mind. But we have this concept of government money. Government money.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. You see, I think the problem is about the relationship with government.
Mm-hmm.
I think Americans don't like government. No, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You understand what I'm saying?
No, I just like the concept.
They favor the problem with taxation. Don't forget that the American Revolution started over taxes, right? So the difference, but the relationship you find in places like the Caribbean is that government has to do everything for them. It's a different relationship and a total belief. So you'd find a whole different construct. So you elect somebody, oh, well, that is the government. You fail to realize that you put that person there to represent you. You know, government spend money badly. Oh, well, it's government money. Well, hello, government doesn't make money. Government gets money from you. So they have to manage your money properly.
Right, so let's take another break, and when we come back, we're going to put some things about the CCJ in perspective.
I'm always on the move. Training, traveling, competing.
A commemorative postage stamp.
So it's good to know I have Co-op Bank in the palm of my hand.
Introducing e-banking, one of many customer convenience services from Grenada Cooperative Bank, and there's more to come.
It's swift, simple, and secure.
Welcome home. Conveniently located in the Grand Shopping Center, for over 40 years, Food Fair has provided quality service at affordable prices. Now, grocery shopping is made easier and more convenient from the Food Fair web store.
Hey, babe. Listen, I need you to go down to Food Fair to get some groceries.
All right, no problem. Right away.
Thanks, babe. What are you doing? You're supposed to be going Food Fair to get a grocery, man.
I am, but didn't you know you can order your groceries online from the Food Fair web store?
Are you serious?
Of course. All you have to do is just to log on to www.foodfair.gd with credit card in hand, and with an order of $100 or more, Food Fair Grenans will deliver up to 3 miles away. And you don't even have to worry about your information, you know. Their safety measures are excellent.
So hold on. You just order online and Food Fair will deliver to you?
Yep.
Oh, baby, better hurry up and order, man.
I already did. They should be here any minute now.
Enjoy easy online shopping anytime from your home or office from the Food Fair web store. Food Fair, where you can fill your baskets without emptying your pockets.
Grenada Market has now introduced the Prime products to online shoppers in the UK via amazon.co.uk. Zeberpick, Nutmed, Bourbonday and Mobiback are now available, with more products being added gradually. These products are shipped across the UK and Europe free of charge for Amazon Prime members and backed by Amazon's reputable customer service. Avoid international shipping. Buy in your local area. Amazon.com in the USA, Amazon.ca in Canada, and Amazon.co.uk in UK and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
When a hurricane watch or warning is in effect, act quickly. Listen to the media for official information. Set your refrigerator to the coldest temperature to help food last longer. Move electrical devices from areas where they may get wet. During a hurricane, stay indoors. Be mindful that you may lose power and keep listening to the media. Unplug all electrical devices and take off your main switch. This will reduce the potential for damage or fire. Avoid opening refrigerators and freezers, as food will thaw more quickly. Assume all wires are energized and stay away from them. In the event of island-wide damage, GrenLec will restore power to critical facilities first. These include hospitals, police, fire departments, and water supply pumps. For more information, please visit us at grenlec.com.
Welcome back. This is back to Thursday evening, and we're looking at some very serious issues. Bev, you wanted to say something when we went?
I was just saying when we come back, we should put the whole CCJ thing in perspective, because we are talking about it here because we are up to date and au fait with what is happening with this whole political campaign to get people to say yes when the referendum comes around. Look, I see prime ministers and judges, I find the thing so distasteful, sitting down together, telling people, oh, we're looking for a bipartisan process. I'm like...
There's no separation of powers?
But there can be no separation of politics from the campaign when you have
I
so
did
many
not say politics.
As far as I am concerned, all the prime ministers down with the people in the CCJ and say, you know, we win some good election, you know, we can win this thing for you. And the people in the CCJ say, yes, man, come we go and run a campaign. And they out the gate. That is how it means.
But no, I heard something yesterday mentioning this question of and it was so instructive I thought I'd share it now. This question of Barbados has just Offences of the Persons Act, because it said that if a person committed murder, the judge shall sentence them to death. And they read it that, listen, here was the parliament telling the judge what they had to do. And they said, there's no separation of powers with that. So that is part of the amendment that they changed in the whole thing. And I thought to myself, that was so clever. The parliament law was telling you shall. In other words, it left the judge with no discretion.
Oh, but I find that pedantic, you know.
It's pedantic, but
the parliament make the laws.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is basically, you're right, Beverly. Parliament makes the laws in this case, and the courts interpret the laws.
Right, yes. But that's the point. Don't go quickly. The parliament make the laws, yes, but the law told the judge how he must act.
Yes. That's what the law. That's what the law is supposed to do. When you have a law, I mean, you have discretion in some laws and in some you don't. Because the law, the same law will say, okay, if a man commits manslaughter, 5 to 25 years. Judge has discretion.
The law says between what?
Right.
You made the point the people made. The law says he shall. He did not have any.
I don't miss the point. But I'm saying, even if the law says, give him between 5 and 25 years, it's still telling you what you shall do.
No.
So your discretion.
You have missed the point completely.
I have not missed the point.
The law that they change says the judge shall. Not
yes,
he may.
and I
understand
saying,
what you're saying.
Not he may.
I understand.
He shall. He is bound to act like that.
Right. I understand.
Right. Yes. And so the judge could not change that law.
Right.
It comes back to Parliament to change the law.
The point.
So Parliament does make the law, and the courts and the judges interpret that law.
Right. And the judge was not left with an interpretation. The Parliament.
The judge was left with an interpretation of the law. The interpretation of the law was that they shall
Yeah.
Give the person the death penalty regardless of what the
But that is no
circumstances leading to that
But that is
death
not an
was.
interpretation. That's a direction. That's a directive.
No. A lot of law is written and stuff.
Well, they went through this, and to my mind, it was absolutely clear what they were changing. There was a directive by the legislature to the judiciary: "Thou shalt do this." And what they're saying is that the legislature is not supposed to tell the judiciary. They can give them leeway. They can say, okay, a sentence should go between here and here. But that particular law did not do that. The legislature told that is why the same CCJ told them. That's why they were changing. The same CCJ say it's unconstitutional. That's why they were changing it.
No, if they're gonna change it because it's unconstitutional, I could support an argument.
Based on what I told you, based on the reading of the law.
So it's unconstitutional for the parliament to tell the court what to do.
Yeah.
That's what they say is unconstitutional. Well, that's all the laws.
No.
All
You're
the laws
still
are
not
made.
getting the point.
You're not getting.
I think, yeah. I'm kind of like lost too. I mean, I'm sort of like here lost too.
That they changed the law yesterday, and all them people didn't know what they changed.
No, I'm not saying they don't know what they changed, and that is why my first statement.
I just told you the
Listen, Jerry, give me a chance.
Go ahead.
Jerry, that is why my first response to what you said was that it's pedantic, because all the laws are made in the parliament, and
but
they go to the court, and the court uses it.
But we know that.
If they have a problem with this particular law, what says, do you want to tell me that in your book of laws, that's the only law?
Regardless, no, it's not the only law that says you shall, and that's the point I'm making. You're missing the point. That specific law told the judge this. It does not say you have an option. It does not say, like you mentioned, you could give a sentence between 9 and 15 years.
But Jerry, it doesn't have to. I think you spun one word.
Hold on. So they sat down and changed the law in Barbados for nothing.
No.
So that's what
what they did? No, they didn't. Somebody recognized that in saying that you shall, it didn't give. I don't know if it was as much as giving a judge. I mean, you could see it as giving a judge discretion, but I think they also saw that there may be circumstances where somebody committed and it may have been a justified murder, and a death penalty should not be the final thing for that person because of the use of the word shall.
But that's the point.
Law was changed. But you see, what they did in changing the law is that they gave the judge greater discretion in applying the death penalty. That's what they did. The judge had shall in the law, they had no discretion. Whether or not the judge agreed with the thing, he had to go ahead.
That was the purpose of changes, because there was no discretion.
Fine, but it doesn't matter. The judge, the parliament, all of you phrase it, Jerry, even to the law, the judge still has been given a new directive. The directive has changed from shall to another. It's still being given a directive. Yes,
right,
Jerry.
Okay. I have no law. All I'm saying is that the whole Parliament of Barbados and wasted their time. That's all I'm going to say.
But he needs to go shopping.
Margaret, I don't know what Jerry is stuck on with this thing, because I see saying
it's not what I did not make the. I'm reporting the arguments. I did not make them.
Right. And
so what I'm saying is that the people in the parliament yesterday, they did something was unnecessary. That's all I'm going to say.
My argument is every single law, every single sentencing is a directive to the judge.
Of course,
the judge does not decide on the sentence. The law decides the sentence, and the judge applies it. So the argument which Margaret just made is the argument that I agree with, that the judge had no discretion, so they amended the law so that the judge can have some discretion. The
Yeah, I
judge,
mean, and you know, you want to hear, Jerry? There's a situation. Hold
Finished.
on, no, there's a similar situation here, particularly with drug laws. Now, judges will tell you that in a lot of drug cases, they have no discretion at all, and sometimes they need to be more lenient with a defendant who comes in. But unfortunately, because of how the law is written, they have no to follow that law.
sorry.
When there's a jury, the judge instructs the jury on the basis of the law. They tell them exactly what they have to do based on what the law says. And many jurors will tell you after, because you know here they talk to the jurors, they question them, they will tell you after they may not have agreed, they would have preferred to do something else, but they did not have a choice but to go with what the law states. It's the same thing that happened in
All
Barbados
I
with
am
that
saying
change.
is that I am no legal mind. The people in sat down in Barbados made the amendment, they made a foolish amendment. That was unnecessary. That's all I'm done. I'm finished. I am done.
Margaret, yeah, we need to take him shoe shopping.
Exactly.
Because we segue there because we're looking at the CCJ and we say we really want to put some quick things into perspective for our listeners. The Caribbean Court of Justice was established 13 years ago to be the final appellate court for the Caribbean. And in so doing, it had two different jurisdictions to deal with trade matters according to the Treaty of Shamos, which governs the Caribbean community, and to deal with criminal matters. Now, for Caribbean countries to file a criminal appeal to the Caribbean Court of Justice, constitutions have to be changed because the Constitution only gives you the right to go to the Privy Council, which we have been doing since independence. Now, we have this argument going around where people are looking for arguments about the CCJ and the merits of the CCJ. And all we're hearing is that we should break the cycle of colonialism. You know, this is bringing an end, completing our independence, and all kind of fanciful political arguments instead of saying to us, the CCJ is it. Let's look at the court and see how we can make it an institution that people have trust and confidence in, so that when we get there, because whether now or another 100 years down the road, we're going to get there, so that when we get there, it is a proper court that will dispense justice in a manner that satisfies people, whether you get what you want or not. Because that's the whole point. People go before the court, you may not necessarily get the kind of judgment you want, but you must get the sense that justice was served. That is what people are looking for. Now, the court is supposed to be an independent organization, and we see our prime ministers running around with the president of the court, with the former president of the court, telling people that they must support this referendum, and we're not really getting any substance from none of these people except to say, break the shackles of colonialism. Even while we're saying that on one hand, and on the other hand, we're selling out ourselves to China. No, that is not an argument to give anybody. Just like in St. Vincent, they're saying, oh, St. Vincent to join the court because the president Vincentian. The new president is a Vincentian. I mean, really? And the prime minister of the country is going to stand up and say that.
The person who said it?
Yes, he is the person who said it.
Proposed it.
Yeah, so it's these kind of nonsensical arguments, which in many cases, and when I listen to the people in Antigua last night, and listen to the people in St. Vincent and people in Grenada, these are the kind of arguments that not sitting well with the population, because like myself, many people looking for substance. We are concerned about enshrining tenets of a agreement in the Constitution. And the question has been asked, why are we enshrining the agreement in the Constitution when the agreement can be changed by the heads of government? And then we are told, no, it's not the agreement that is being enshrined. So what is being enshrined? Because we are going to amend the Constitution. So what are we going to take out? What are we going to put in? What is the new Constitution going to look like? What is it going to say? When we pick it up to read it, what are we going to be reading? What will the country be beholden to? Because the Constitution is the supreme law. Tell us what you're taking out. Tell us what you're putting in. We have heard arguments that it is the entire treaty that set up the CCJ court that's going to be enshrined in the Constitution. And if that happens and the heads of government decide to make changes to the treaty, what becomes of our Constitution?
But the treaty has been changed already, so that is a very dangerous road.
Exactly. And the Constitution cannot be changed by the heads of government.
Right.
And there has not been any clarification to say, well, when the Constitution amended, the treaty will not be in it. This is what is going to be in it. Those kind of arguments we are not hearing. When those kind of questions are asked, people are rubbished. And, oh, where are you going with this? Blah, 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 whatever. And no explanation is given to say, this is what's coming out of the Constitution. This is what is going. Because whatever is going into the Constitution, that is what is going to be enshrined, just like the Privy Council is enshrined. If the Privy Council had not been enshrined, it would have been thrown out long ago. But it cannot be thrown out just like that. It needs 2/3 majority of the public vote as the final step to make that happen. Now, these are things that we should take the time to get fixed as people before we rush out there to cast a vote to some politicians say so. Because if we vote for the problems that now exist, we won't be able to fix them down the road. And we should know that they are not going to be fixed. And when they come back to bite us, we're going to say, oh, we didn't know. Now is the time to know. Now is the time to be informed. Now is the time to get educated. Now is the time to say,
yeah, but basically,
these things need to fix.
Who telling people that? Because that is where I have a problem with Gwen. Because right now, taxpayers' money being used to promote the CCJ, right? In a function that should only be really the responsibility of the citizens, because here the citizens making law, but the government is using their power and the same taxpayers' money to promote what they want. Who pays the others that has that information that you have, that you could spread it using the same planes and fly about and have a session here and a session there? Who pays them? That's where the whole system falls down.
And then they want to further insult my intelligence by saying they want to make it a bipartisan exercise.
But how can be partisan?
By getting some token people from opposition parties. That's what they're doing in Grenada. Getting some token people from opposition parties and get them to sit at the head table. And then you say it's a partisan process. Who says a bipartisan process means that everybody has to agree to the same thing? And my argument is, this is not agree or disagree. This is that people have raised some fundamental issues about the CCJ. Some fundamental issues have been raised here in Grenada about the bill. And these are the questions that need to be answered. These are the things that need to be cleared up and corrected where they need to be corrected before we go and vote. Yes, because it don't make sense to go and vote for the problem. Fix the problem first.
Yeah.
But the question is, as I ask the question, who is going to carry this message?
George did an excellent interview with attorney at law, Jerry Edwin, on one of his Sundays with George Grant program. Jerry Edwin went through several facets of the bill that people are going to be voting on, went through some things about the CCJ and how it is managed and how it is governed. He even raised the issue that compensation for the president of the court is determined by the prime ministers. So while the fund is there to deal with all of these things, the prime ministers still have to decide if the president going to get $10 a month, or if he's going to get $2 for traveling allowance, or how he's going to be compensated. A large part of it rests with the prime ministers. And they don't tell you these things when they're telling you how insulated the court is from the politicians, even when they're running around with the politicians and trying to tell you they're insulated. So these are concerns, legitimate concerns and legitimate issues that people have that need to be cleared up. Is this so? Well, we the people don't like it so. We need it to be changed. Go and change it and come back. Instead of trying.
But the question I'm going to ask is, how can you ever totally divorce the court from government?
It's not a matter of totally divorce. It's a matter of the court being able to function independently.
Right. Because inevitably somebody is going to have to make a decision about something. Even if
I don't understand the question though.
Yeah, but Jerry, the reason why I was asking that is because, Bev was saying, well, the prime ministers have to determine the person's salary. But even if you decided to set up, let's suppose that you decided to set up a committee, right, to decide that, who would determine who that committee is?
The prime minister determines whose salaries.
The president of the court.
The president of the court.
They determine his compensation package, his traveling allowances, other allowances, and everything. They have to decide how much he's to get and agree on how much he's to get.
Well, I guess they will do that because they got the money. They put the money in it, so that probably gives them some local standard. Okay. Because my thing is that should not happen, and that is why I have a problem with the magistracy being paid for by the executive. I really have a problem with that because there can be no separation. But I suspect in this case, because countries put money into it, maybe that's their way of saying you have some control.
But Jerry, back up here. When you say I'm asking because I don't know. When you say the magistracy is paid by the executive, explain. I don't
because
understand
it is
that.
the government. It is the government who pays the magistrate. The magistrates have a contract with the government. A contract. Okay. It's a contractual arrangement.
Right.
So,
but
to put it in layman,
wouldn't it be government that? But
no change government.
Taxpayers. How would they be paid?
Huh?
Right.
No, well, okay. Under the present construct, and this is what I presented at our presentation
let me hear how this works.
So that's how it is now. And that is why the government could handpick who they want. Basically, you could see what they like about the jail, whatever it is. It is the government to push for these people. Okay? I said that the night, since they have this, where they put together the fund for the CCJ, why can't you do the same for magistrate? So that the magistrates are not paid. The government literally has they're insulated the same way. Why can't you do that?
Why?
For one thing, they're not cost as much.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think this through here. Bev, what do you say?
I say I believe we can, but I don't believe the political will to do that.
Exactly.
Has ever been even looked at or explored in any way whatsoever. Because look at it, Margaret talking about who should make the decision, etc. If you put $100 million in the hand of a committee and say, manage the fund, why can't you leave it to them to determine how the money should be dispensed?
I don't see why you can't.
Exactly, because
but the politicians made sure they kept their finger in the pipe.
So they have to keep their finger in the pipe. Mm-hmm. Because if the prime ministers of the region should come and say, okay, we think the compensation package for the president should be $50 a month, and the people managing the fund should say, boy, the way the turnover is right now, we can't give him 50 enough. Let's give him 45. What's gonna happen? Are they going to?
You mean who's will override?
Who's gonna prevail? Exactly. The way that our politics is set up, we know that the prime ministers would overrule the committee and say, we don't care about your wealth management, give him the $50. And 5 years down the road, you hear that the kitty boss. You know, so if these are the people who manage, yes, you have to set a salary scale. Yes, you have to set, and not just salary, I call it a whole compensation package, because I'm sure there are things that would fall under that umbrella for a president at a court. And let me say it absolutely clear, I believe these people should be properly compensated, you know? So if these people, if you have repose enough confidence in them to manage the fund, repose enough confidence in them to decide on a compensation package as well, why you have to go double your little curry finger them in it?
Let me say this. We having this discussion. I could bet my bottom dollar. The last 2 minutes of this discussion that we have had here has never been had anywhere else in the region on a public forum like this. Never. And that's the problem. Because the average citizen does not understand how this whole thing functions. They have nobody I could bet my bottom dollar has ever brought this whole. All we hear is that this fund was set up and the fund is used to pay the thing, and it finishes right there.
Yeah.
Right there it finishes.
Yes. And when I heard that interview with Jerry Edwin and George, I heard some things that I had never heard before, and I had to go and look at some things that I had never looked at before. And I said to myself, there are so many things that we need to deal with before we go and vote for problem. We don't have enough problem in the region. We like problem. Here's an opportunity to, we're not talking about getting things perfect, but get them right.
Yeah.
Get it right. Has anyone within the CCJ ever answered the question, why doesn't the CCJ has the full complement of judges it is supposed to have? 13 years, you're in existence, and you cannot find the number of judges your charter say you're supposed to have till you develop a protocol to allow you to function with the lesser number of judges. You want to tell me why you don't have your full complement of judges up to now?
But you see, those are the questions that we should ask them to explain. I sure the majority of people does not even know that the CCJ does not the complement judges that was prescribed.
It should have, or even
that's
know
what
that
I said.
there is a...
That was prescribed because them who prescribed that, not we.
And then they go and write the protocol to change it. So the number of judges they're supposed to have, that is still there. Let's call it as law. But you go and write a second document to say, okay, you can continue with 7 if you don't have 10.
But then is that legal though?
And that's why they did the protocol, to make it legal.
That's the question.
That is why.
But maybe when they saw the costs, because you don't say they're down to 85 million, and they say, boy, paying another 3 judges, boy, we're going to reach down by 50 so fast.
But they're supposed to be
investing. Why do they need 11?
That's a good question.
Or 10. Is it 11 or 10? One of those numbers.
I think it's 10.
Why do they need 10? I mean, I'm not saying that you guys have the answer. I'm just throwing the question out there. Why do you need 10?
Well, that is why I said their prescription is 10. I don't know why they chose 10. But they're realizing that they're functioning with, well, maybe if all of the countries
had signed on.
Right, maybe.
So the appellate jurisdiction, they would need the 10. But
how many people make up the Privy Council?
5.
Huh?
What? Where did Mr. George go? We're hearing him, but we're not seeing him.
I know, right?
Yeah. The Privy Council has...
Battery low. We have to pay attention. 10% remaining.
You have to go and power up.
Well, I just
right.
did.
It's five law lords that sit on the Privy Council, right? So here, it's 5. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm saying, why do you need 10 or 11 people? I mean, that's the reason why I'm asking too, because the United States
we need to ask them those questions.
Yeah, those are questions we need to ask.
We need to ask them.
I'm not saying you have to import an American model, but when you're doing things, what you do is that you compare to what other people have.
And you look at best practices.
And you look at what they do. So that's the reason why I asked how much makeup, and again, how many things are here. The U.S. Supreme Court has 9. And then, on the various district courts and stuff, there are less judges as well. There may be 3 in some cases. U.S. courts of, because that Supreme Court is also divided up into different circuits, and they're just like about 3 judges on the circuit, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that. I can check. I had verified that number, but it's a small number. So the question is, why do you need? They have 9 justices here on their Supreme Court for what's the population in this country? More than 40 million people. You have how many people?
40 million.
Yeah.
Which country?
Country.
317 million people.
Well, there you go. But you understand what I'm saying, though? You have 9 justices, and you in the Caribbean didn't even have a fraction of that, and you want 12?
Well,
to do what?
Let's hold that thought, and we're going to take our final break. And then when we come back, we'll wrap up on CCJ and see if we can touch people wanting to harm Ralph.
But before, let me just also make the point when we come back. There's an ongoing situation, a very fluid situation in Dominica. But we'll just give a couple minutes at the end for that.
Okay.
Can I have a chicken lunch, please? Large.
Real nice today.
I don't want that.
But you just asked for a chicken lunch.
I don't have problem with the lunch. Afraid the container.
What is the problem with it?
These styrofoam containers, they don't good for the environment. They shorten with life.
What foolishness you telling me? So what you want me to use?
Put my food in this.
Where you get that?
At the food fair, where you could get all biodegradable food boxes and disposable food supplies like cups, plates, anything you could think about. Name it, it's there. And they don't harm the environment. Food Fair, taking the lead in cleaning up and protecting the environment. Hey, like you take me advice, you get in your biodegradable food supplies.
Well, girl, I supporting who's supporting the environment. That is why I shop in at Food Fair.
Food Fair, where you can fill your baskets without emptying your pockets. Products distributed by Hubbard's agency, Kirani James Boulevard.
I'm always on the move. Training, traveling, competing. So it's good to know I have Quad Bank in the palm of my hand.
Introducing e-banking, one of many customer convenience services from Grenada Cooperative Bank. And there's more to come.
It's swift, simple, and secure.
Welcome home. 2, 3, 7. If you wanna check the Grand Lac balance on your phone, or report a faulty line near your home, if there is an emergency, take out your phone. These are 3 numbers that you should know. 2, 3, 7. Call me anytime, I'm always on the line. 2, 3, 7. Just call me anytime, I'm always on the line. 2, 3, 7.
Grenada Market has now introduced the Prime products to online shoppers in the UK via amazon.co.uk. Zeberpick, Nutmeg, Bourbon Day and Mobiback are now available, with more products being added gradually. These products are shipped across the UK and Europe free of charge for Amazon Prime members and backed by Amazon's reputable customer service. Avoid international shipping. Buy in your local area. Amazon.com in the USA, Amazon.ca in Canada, and Amazon.co.uk in UK and Europe. GrenadaMarket.com. When you can't come to the island, the products of the island will come to you.
Welcome back for our main moments on this edition of Make We Chat. And what you say you wanted to wander off into, Beth?
We just wrap up on the CCJ, talking, about this political campaign to get people to vote yes instead of dealing with the issues that people have raised and saying, let's fix them before we go to this court as the final court. But right on the tail of that, we're talking about justice. And people usually enter the justice system because of some kind of crime, misdemeanor, something. And in St. Vincent, there has really been some horrific crimes in St. Vincent. I don't know what Jerry people them going on with over
I know,
there.
right? I don't know what's going on there.
But and I'm telling this story for you and you can do the rest. The opposition party in St. Vincent had a march recently.
2 marches.
They had 2 actually to march against crime and unemployment. And the Prime Minister of the country made a big joke out of it, So he called into a radio station one morning. And this is another thing I find strange about St. Vincent. The Prime Minister have time to go on radio station. That man always on radio.
For hours.
But he called into a radio station one morning, and the host on the radio station asked him if he would give up his security for a week, since he says that you really don't have no crime in St. Vincent. Is not a serious thing. And his response was that leaders have security for a reason, but he knows that people wake up. He needs it because he knows that people wake up in the morning having on their mind what they're going to do today to harm Ralph.
Thinking how they could harm Ralph.
And I had to scramble to my Vincentian friend Jerry. I said, Jerry, how much Ralph in your country? Because all of these people who are falling victims of crime, their name Ralph?
Well, you see, they didn't just think theirs was executed. Maybe there's a distinction there.
Oh, maybe so. But because the other Ralphs do not have armed security personnel around them, the people with bad intentions can get to them. But this particular Ralph now has security detail around him constantly, so they can't get to him. And I was this thing just hit me funny. I'm like, why is the Prime Minister of the country saying these things on radio? People waking up in the morning having it on their mind to harm Ralph.
There's a lot, right?
I'm glad my name is not Ralph. Because I would hate to think that.
It's sad because a lot of football is being made over this issue of crime. Just yesterday, a little cafe that sells stuff for school children was held up about 1:30, 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon by 3 gunmen and robbed. I mean, how much money could you have? This is a little wayside thing just outside of this.
Selling to school children.
Yeah, right.
For the whole day, probably sell $300
exactly.
$400.
Most maximum. Have on Saturday night after Pupu in the March, a Minister of Agriculture's wife, taking her child out of her vehicle, was robbed. They were fortunate in the sense that in her handbag was an iPhone, so they were able to track them, and they found a ring of 8 people who was involved in this whole ring of. And yet, almost every week, right? Not almost. Every week you have at least some kind of incident like it. But the Prime Minister, we do have a crime problem. He says it's episodic, not general.
Yeah. And he come and use these fancy words as if using that word put him in some category above other people.
But yes, duh.
When you come on radio, come talk about, oh, the crime in St. Vincent is episodic, you know. It's not general. Who are you talking to? And when you hear people in positions of leadership making these kind of statements in relation to something as serious as crime, it's so sad. It is so unfortunate.
But hold on. You missing another. Well, you weren't there, but one of the questions that he was asked by the host of the program: will you work with join the opposition to work on a bilateral approach to crime? He says no. He says he does not trust. He does not trust the leader of the opposition.
Hold on. Back up. A few weeks ago, when President Saunders was in St. Vincent, when they had this big thing for him, your Prime Minister got up in that and said, oh, he was going to approach the leader of the opposition to talk to him about ascension to the CCJ.
Thank you.
Is that the same one him don't trust?
Thank you for reminding me about that.
So he doesn't trust him to talk to him about the crime. Well, he said crime don't have no problem, but he doesn't trust him to talk to him about crime. But he trusted him to go talk to him about the CCJ.
Because he wants the CCJ.
So he only trusts him for things that he wants.
But I'm glad you reminded me about that. Just make a note here. Next time I have to speak to that.
Yes, he stood up in that forum and he said, oh, I'm putting it to him, you know, because I'm going to be contacting the leader of the opposition. Because they need parliamentary support for it, and he only has a 1-seat majority. And they need 2/3 majority in the parliament. My goodness.
I'm so glad you just reminded me. You reminded me of this.
Oh boy.
People can be so dishonest. But we're running out of time, you know, and there was a situation in Dominica today. I need Jerry to...
Yeah, let me quickly tell you what that is.
I got some bits and pieces about it, but not enough.
In February, if you remember, they had a big thing in which they charged that they accused the opposition for planning a coup. Okay? I thought this whole matter had been put to bed. The government brought in 3 lawyers from Trinidad today, and they have arrested the opposition leader, Lennox Linton, Nicholas Hodge, who colleagues out of the party, Dr. Thompson Fontaine, but he is actually in Africa somewhere. He has been charged.
They arrested him long distance.
Yeah, well, had to be. But the 3 of them pleaded not guilty to the charges, and there are people who protested outside of the court all day today because of this. All right. Senior counsel Israel Khan and 2 assistant lawyers were retained from Trinidad, and along with the office of the DPP, are representing the DLP government on the matter. The DLP government. It was a party thing, really. Okay. Francis is being represented by senior counsel Justin Simon, Gina Dyer, and Henry Dyer. Linton, George, and Fontaine James have been represented by Gilden Richards. The presiding magistrate adjourned the matter to March 28, 2019, with the deadline for disclosure being set as the last working day of December. So they asked for, the defense asked for disclosure, for full disclosure. So they have been given until the last working day of December for the disclosure, and the case has been adjourned to March 20th next year.
You see, these are the things within the justice system that I have a problem with, you know. You arrest a man, you bring him to court. The defense asks for disclosure. I want to see the evidence you have against me. You can't show me. You need 3 months to show me the evidence that you bring me to court for today. That makes sense?
And you're messing up my life all the time, all in the process.
Exactly.
Of course, it makes sense. Factually, the evidence.
Yeah.
I need time to do that.
magistrate, if you bring this man to court, you should have the evidence.
You should have the evidence.
So next week we meeting back here.
Yes, or tomorrow morning, bright and early, we're coming. Full disclosure. You want 3 months? Now, those kinds of things within the justice system make no sense. And the proponents of the CCJ would like to tell you that the CCJ going to change these things. It ain't changing nothing. Nothing.
Let's read this, right? On February 7th, 2017, disturbances took place following a public meeting by the United Workers' Party and others near the financial center in Roseville. I don't know if you guys remember that. In its wake, Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerritt accused the United Workers' Party and the Dominica Freedom Party of attempting to overthrow his government. So that's why they're basically.
But this would have been a bloodless coup. I never hear about coup without weaponry.
No, but all the people did back then was to protest.
But that's what I'm saying. It would have been a bloodless coup.
But more and more I see across the region that leaders in office are going up against people's right to protest, even peaceful protest.
Yeah.
These are the things you have to watch very carefully. Very carefully. In the Grenadines, they arrested people placards. People had a pot of food to sustain them. They arrested pot too.
They arrested food.
Don't laugh, it's the truth.
It's true. The placard. Even the other day, recently, about a month ago, someone took some pictures of the placard in the police station still.
But they any police station because they're keeping rain out.
Yes, they're blocking up the holes in the windows.
Because there's some holes in the station, so they use the thing because they have they don't have no money to repair the station. No, we got some stuff. We got some stuff that just make it. I mean, it's like this is like a movie.
Yeah. So the opposition leader in Dominica has been arrested on and accused of trying to overthrow the government.
Well, that's not the charge they actually brought, but at the time, that's what he said.
So what is he charged for today?
Okay, they were charged with obstruction of justice, incitement in relation to public disturbances.
Okay. Obstruction of justice.
Right, that part. Let me notice I stop unless the writer of this article didn't get it right.
That's a case.
But at the time, the big thing was because I don't know if you remember that they had taken them in to the station. They had arrested them. Even one guy, they went to the radio station when he came up with a program.
Yeah, I remember that.
Right, because they had all this talk about them wanting to overthrow the government.
I do remember that.
The opposition's main function is
to oppose.
To replace the government.
So,
I mean, but if you're not doing that, you still. No, I'm not talking about blood and stuff like that, but that must be their main function.
No, we're not talking about overthrow. There is a process through which people get to form the government, and everyone in opposition agitates ferociously through that process.
But it seems that if you go through this process now that you are trying to overthrow the government.
Boy.
We got 2 minutes anyway. 2 minutes. If there's any final things that we need to speak to.
Well, we're certainly not introducing any new agenda item at this stage. I think we have behaved ourselves on our comeback, that we have given some voice. Yes. We have given some ventilation to the 3 items.
Quickly, before you go. Dominica is also going to move to amending its law that will be able to allow people with CBI passports to vote. That, to me, is a whole discussion on its own.
Back up here again?
You heard me.
Okay,
Dominica basically hardly have 40,000 voters, and they have over 20,000 people or more with CBI passport. Figure it out.
And they're going to allow them to vote. And you know that everybody with a CBI passport, most CBIs, most citizens by investment, they are adults, most of them.
Yes, exactly. They're votable. Anyway, we gotta close. We're down to that last minute. Let me thank those of you who have followed us this evening. We're back, as everybody has said. And thank you once again for joining us for this edition of Next Week Chat. Next week, God willing, we should be back here with much more. So we invite you. We hope we've started some discussions.
Yeah. Actually, you know what, guys? So Grenada's Prime Minister and Foreign Minister is holding a town meeting up here next Thursday. Just remember that.
Well, you have to go there and report to us, okay?
Yeah.
Assignment.
And surprisingly, they blasted it to everybody because normally they do it in secret, but the word has been out on the street, flyers, email blast. Yep.
Right, so you have to go there and report to us. You want live video.
I will try.
Thank you very much once again. Back over to Georgia. Thanks once again for
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Father, I just want to stop for a minute and just say I love you. Just want to tell you thank you just for being patient with me and just for giving me